broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Astronaut Wives Club's after show. Tonight we are covering episode 7, Rendezvous. I'm your host, April Whitson-Hant. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at April Whitson-Hant. Where can they find y'all, lovely co-hosts?
Hey guys, I'm Sterling. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sterling Cates.
And I'm Khalil Boo. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at
Khalil Boo.
You can find all of us at AfterBuzz TV. Don't forget to tweet us while you're watching. We'd love to hear your comments and read them on all of the after shows. Download us on iTunes, rate us, comment, like us, all that jazz.
Share. You forgot share.
Share
That's a
as
big
well.
one.
Yes, for sure. Y'all, so I almost feel bad because I feel like we brought this upon this episode, but we finally got what we've been predicting the entire season.
Well, you've been the big one.
You've done
that.
Yeah.
It's just been me.
Don't put that on us.
Not us.
The Grim Reaper.
No, that's all you. But good job.
But yes, great job predicting. It had to happen. We saw it in the previous.
Thank you.
So.
Yeah, but for me, this is, we'll get into this obviously, but it came about in a different way than I thought it would. I definitely thought it was going to be a failed mission type thing.
It was one of our guys who died. Because when it started off in the Gemini, it was Gemini, right?
Yeah.
Gemini guys died, and I was like, oh, well, we don't even know them. Who cares?
Yeah.
But then when our guy died, it was like...
Ooh, they just went there.
Especially to Betty, too.
I know. Sweet little Betty. But what did y'all think about tonight's episode? To me, it was different because we didn't even see Reen.
I know.
We didn't.
Oh God.
Well, she's doing her own thing now.
She's in Bermuda.
She's about to be a big publicist, big time publicist.
A writer.
She is. Writer.
Yeah, writer. But I like this episode because it's bringing in fresh people, and it felt like with a story that's we don't want to get too dramatic or too far off from what happened in real life.
Yeah.
So they have to bring in new people to keep it fresh and keep us interested, and even for people who just want to watch it for the entertainment aspect of it. So I really like this episode, and I really like where it's going.
Me too.
Because it does have that little drama. Yeah, it's like that scandalous.
That next preview
is
pretty intense. Yeah.
I know. It was.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
I'm excited.
He's with us now.
Yeah.
Caught up.
It took a minute. Sorry. That was
So we start off tonight's episode with, they're kind of in a big meeting, Duncan, with all of the women.
Wives.
Yes, with all the wives.
That's what I like to call it.
I like that. And he's talking about, these are our goals coming up. They're fully on Gemini now, or they're on the Gemini mission. So we still have our what are their names? The what wives and the Gemini wives?
Mercury.
Mercury wives. Okay.
Mercury.
So we still have them.
I had no idea where you were going.
Yeah, I'm like, what are they called? So we have them, but we're fully on Gemini missions now.
It's Apollo in there too.
Yeah, and Apollo.
Yeah, and Apollo. And so Duncan's telling them.
So there's over 30 wives now.
Yeah, they said that.
That's a lot of names to keep up with.
That's a lot of women.
Yeah. So Dung is telling them all about their initiatives. They have this new, they're trying to do the Rendezvous, which is why this episode is titled that, which basically means two rockets going beside each other, possibly communicating, what have you, and all this other stuff that they want to do to be the first, and this is how we're going to beat Russia and whatever. And he essentially tells the women, actually no, he straight up tells the women, don't give your husband, we don't want any demands, no distractions,
Basically, fix him a sandwich.
Say it. Say it. He wasn't afraid to say it.
You wouldn't want to see me in that room. No. That is for sure.
If your husband feels frisky, don't deny him.
Oh, God. Yeah, Khalil, what do you say about that?
Why? You put me on
And
the
there's
spot.
dead air.
I know.
No, I'm kidding.
It was a bit rude. I understand where it was coming from.
I understand
he
where
did
it's
it
coming
in
from,
his
too.
most tactful way possible, I guess. But it was a little something like that. It's kind of hard to get. I understand where he's coming from. Let's just leave it at that.
It was a smidge insensitive.
It
Let's
was.
say that.
It was.
Yeah.
Because all these women are going through all of this stuff. Their husbands are in space. Some of them are,
Some of them are
dying.
pregnant.
Some of them are
Some of them
pregnant.
have
Some of
kids
them
that are dying and have cancer.
It's very intense.
I mean,
And he's
there's
like,
real stuff going on
Yeah.
in their
Yeah.
lives, so yeah.
That's important to remember because I kind of forget that about like the real stuff that happens. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm glad that they kind of went there this episode. And we see our faves, the Mercury wives, they're kind of like the den mothers, if you will. They're like in charge of everyone. Everyone looks up to them because they were the first.
They've been through
Right.
it.
Yeah, but at the same
child's play.
time, it's also they're like, who are these little newbies over
Yeah.
here trying to take our positions?
Yeah.
But
I think they're like really into it though, because when they were scoping
yeah.
out everyone, they're like, oh, that one's definitely pregnant, trying to hide it.
Yeah.
And they're like, we need to invite them over for coffee
Yeah,
or
they
whatever.
did
So
that, and
they're
that was
like,
cute.
yeah, they're
That was
trying to.
cute.
they're sweet.
I think they just want to know everything, honestly. I don't think it's like that sweet.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
But
never
it's
mind.
sweet
they're a
too.
little sweet.
Yeah, sure, it's sweet too.
So we meet a new character tonight named Marilyn. We already have a Marilyn C, who we obviously saw a lot more of tonight. But this Marilyn is pregnant. She hasn't told her husband yet. Obviously hasn't told anyone in NASA, but the ladies can clearly tell because, I'm sorry, but I love me an Empire waist dress, but if you do wear too many of those, then something probably is going on.
I felt bad, like, as a guy, because how did you not notice that your wife is pregnant? So,
Those Twinkies.
Have
they'll
you
get
never
ya.
seen I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant?
no.
Just me. Just me.
Yeah, just
Okay,
you.
never
I
mind.
just feel like, as a husband, we're supposed to notice, like,
Sure.
maybe,
Right.
and then so I'm watching it thinking, are guys really that oblivious? Like, what am I missing out on? Like daily things, signals, and stuff like that I'm missing
Yeah.
out. If like this guy can't even, the woman that he sleeps next to every night, he doesn't know she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, man, is it
Well,
that bad for
she
her?
even
She might be early on.
Yeah,
I don't
and she even said, she's like, he hasn't been home in weeks because he's been in the Cape
Oh.
so much because he has a mission coming up.
Yeah.
They talk about at one point him, or when the Mercury wives are talking, they're like, oh, it's going to be the first Astro baby
Yeah.
while the dad's in space.
Right.
So it's pretty like early on, I guess. She says he hasn't been home in weeks and she didn't want to tell him over the phone. So really, how is that?
She said she'll tell him before the baby's at the dinner table.
That seems like a good timeline, I guess. And we also meet Harriet, who is married to Dawn, and her son has Down syndrome,
right.
and he
cancer.
also, I guess he's had cancer, and now it's back.
In remission. No, remission.
Now it's
means-
back, yeah.
Yeah. So the women, we see that they're like, well, call her over too. Let's figure this all out. And she says that that her Dawn is, in the Cape a lot, and she doesn't want to jeopardize things because he has a mission coming up. So she doesn't want to jeopardize his turn in the lineup.
Right.
But she also really needs him to be home.
Well, and the son needs him.
Exactly.
there, right.
I mean, he needs his dad. Not ever seeing him is obviously a tough thing. So, we have, all of our Mercury guides have kind of fallen off the wagon, so to speak, but they're not really, they are astronauts, but they're not. But we have Alan and Deke. They are like captain astronauts. I forget their title.
Chief astronaut.
Chief, that sounds cooler. And so Louise says maybe she can talk to Alan, see if she can figure something out.
Right.
But
Alan's like, if he's not seeing his wife, that's not because of us.
right. Well, because we see, like, even though they're in the Cape, like, all of the husbands are always still kind of back at home.
Well, they can come
too.
back on the
Yeah.
weekends and,
I want
Yeah.
to say he gave her a little eye when he said that too. He was like, It's not me.
He's like, I've been there before. I've been there, done that.
Not me.
I know what he's up to.
We're not keeping them.
Well, so Louise asked Trudy to fly her to the Cape, and they're going to confront her husband, Don.
Yeah. And by the way, Trudy is just the best.
She's the
Yeah.
best.
Just hop in her
Women
plane.
Crush
They can go
Wednesday.
anywhere. Split the
For
gas. I'll
50
fly you for
bucks.
free.
For $50.
She said she's paid me $50 to fly her to Dallas every weekend. I'm like,
But she's flying Beverly, though, for $50. But Louise, she flew for free as long as they split the gas.
With the gas, yeah.
right. Well, so they
$50.
kind of like some stuff goes down we'll talk about, but once they get to the Cape, this is much later in the episode, but to talk to, or to confront Don, I should say, they show up to this house. A little boy answers the phone and calls for his mom. It's some blonde
the
lady.
door.
Yeah, some blonde lady, that's the kid's mom, comes to the door. And then Don, walks them outside and essentially says, it's so tough. He can't, And this is a whole other side to that kind of storyline with his son having Downs. He feels terrible, but he can't. He says it's really tough for him. He can't stand to see his son that way, and
Okay,
all that
that all
jazz.
makes sense, but
Bullshit.
Sure,
Yeah.
it's a part of it. It's tough, but
Bullshit.
dude,
Yeah.
be there for your son
Do
at
what
the
you
same
gotta
time.
Yeah.
Right, and it's not like
Bullshit.
Harriet has a choice
Right.
to just up and leave.
She
whenever
has to be
wants
there.
Right.
And I said it while
It's very
we're
selfish.
I said it
Very.
while we were watching, but I'm crazy confused as to why they didn't ask him even in the slightest who this woman and child are and
I think they
why
just
he's staying there.
assumed
Yeah, and-
that he's trying to escape what's really going on.
And then I guess when you have a kid that's going through what his son is going through, it's kind of like, all right, look, have fun later. You got some real shit going on at home.
Yeah.
And that the woman that he was staying with knew what was going on. She was like, "Are one of you Harriet?" And she was all sassy about it. It's like, okay, probably not how you should treat the wife
Right.
or the husband that's staying in your house. But,
Well, some women are crazy apparently, but I kind of hope we don't see that. much.
What was that? Some women are crazy.
Not me. Well, I kind of hope we don't really see Don all that much anymore because he's Don.
yeah, he kind of sucks.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But one of the
But Trudy was right, though. She was like, let's just leave because Harriet's going to have to take care of him, too. And
Yeah.
that's more than she can,
Yeah.
bear. But you do want him to be there for his son, obviously.
I
Yeah.
just wanted one of them
It's
to
like a-
just clock him with the purse.
Yeah.
with the purse.
with the
Knock some sense into him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they didn't. They just left, and
I bet
now
he'll
we'll
come
never
back,
see
though.
Don again.
No, I bet he'll come
It's
back.
because it's the 60s.
I bet he'll come
So
back
it's-
and pretend like he's a hero and,
You sound like someone's parents. It was the 60s, man. It's all right. I do whatever I wanted to. Oh my. Okay, so kind of on Trudy flying Louise. So we see last episode her and Gordo finally reunited in a little moment of love and smooching. And this week we're kind of seeing a different side of Trudy.
She's the boss
we're
bitch.
seeing she
She
like,
wears the pants in the house.
and what she's saying is, we've done this once. We're gonna
Yeah.
try this again, but this time
I'm gonna do it my way.
on my terms, right?
But she also kind of, for a hot minute, she takes I don't want to say takes a step back, but kind of does, because he, like you said, she's been flying Beverly, and he says, you have to tell me these things, or ask me these things. He even said it first, because I want to spend, I have such little free time, I want to spend it with you.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Cute.
And she says, okay. And then later, whenever Louise is asking her to fly her to Cocoa Beach, Trudy says, okay, let me just run it by Gordo, or I forgot how she worded it. And Louise is like, you have to ask Gordo? What? Kind of with trying to say it nicely, but still making her point.
Right.
So, and you could tell Trudy was immediately well, I don't have to ask him. I just have to, we have to work out our schedules. So, I think it's good of her that she is willing to kind of, that
Meet
is
him halfway.
Yeah,
I
that
think
is
that's
a part
what's
of it.
necessary. Yes.
You can't just be like, oh, hey, I'm gone. Take care of the kids, even though Dawn
She
seems
does
to
that
do
at the end, though, too. But
Yeah, true that. But I like when she leaves him for the trip with Louise, and she's like, okay, so she has her swimming lesson, and she has her dentist appointment, and you have to do this laundry, and the meatloaf is in the freezer, and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, well, okay, he don't know meatloaf.
I had a moment there. I was like, oh yeah, they don't have microwaves.
They don't have microwaves?
No?
When was the microwave invented?
I don't know.
Ooh, I'm gonna find that out
Tweet
right
us
now.
and let us know when the microwave was invented.
Who also invented the microwave?
Yeah, who did it? I need to tell them thank you.
But so
Or
we
her.
there you go.
There you go.
But so we see she, she's kind of like getting back to herself and standing up for herself. And then later in the episode, she's going on a flight again, and she's like, "I'm telling you now,"
Right.
because he asked like, "You have to tell me these things." So I like that even though we are seeing them together and seeing them, being a couple again, that she's still going to be the Trudy that we know and love.
That's right.
right.
And it's not going to just be like all of a sudden it's going to be a perfect relationship. They've got to work out the kinks.
Exactly.
I want Trudy to be my girlfriend. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
You're in the wrong time period.
I think she's a little old for your age.
She might still be
Oh,
here.
heck yeah, peeps, 1946.
Oh, so they did
Nice.
have the microwave.
It was called the
And he's
radar
complaining
range.
about that.
It was called the radar range. Not that that's important. Anyway, so one of our favorite couples tonight, Betty and Gus, we I can't even say it yet. So they, obviously these astronauts don't get to spend a lot of time with their wives. And Betty and Gus are at a dinner with Pat and Ed. And Ed was, at the beginning of the episode, he was the person who had just gone into space. And they got to go to Paris and meet all of these people
It
and
was
do
like
these
a second
fabulous things.
honeymoon.
Right. Pat is trying to... She means well. She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I offend?" Of course she did, because Betty's
My
like,
bad. My bad.
so Betty tells them how they didn't. She and Gus didn't really have a honeymoon. They just
Right.
went to an amusement park, and he
Rode
said
the
they were going to
roller
have a
coaster.
lot of ups and downs.
That was cute.
Yeah, that is cute.
But he's, he is a designer and engineer on these rockets, so obviously he's pretty much needed at all times. But then she walks into their kitchen one afternoon and he's building a model of the Eiffel Tower, and he hands her some tickets, and he planned a little trip to Chez Paris for them.
Oh, hey!
And she's so excited.
Yeah,
They're
that was
finally
really
getting their
cute.
honeymoon.
Right.
At least he
Until it's
bought the
postponed
tickets.
80 times.
Right.
And
At least he
through
bought the
several
tickets.
years, it seemed, in the time hop.
Yeah, but at least he bought the tickets. That lets you know he was serious. Than somebody just saying like, "April, I'm taking you to Paris." Like,
That travel agent probably quit her job or was somewhere else, and they're like, "Okay, we're
I don't
Probably
work
in
here
Paris.
anymore.
She used the tickets.
She probably
I'm in Paris. I moved here."
but so he I forget what happens, but something happens, a shuttle isn't working, or a piece of a rocket isn't working, and they need Gus. And so Betty, of course, like she always does, stands by her man and doesn't complain, because obviously stuff comes up, and she says, "You know what, I'll call the travel agent, they need you, we'll go to Paris later." And we do, and this will come up in other topics as well, but we do go across this crazy kind of time hop in this episode that I don't really know, because
It was a lot. It was like a bunch of different sequences of the
Events.
the events happening, and then
Yeah.
it said 5 months later. So I don't really know how much time actually passed.
Right. Well, okay, so now I just had a flashback of remembering this, because in the episode we see Louise and Alan sitting there with their girls, and they're
Yeah.
They're
some
like-
grown girls.
They're
Yeah.
grown. But
And-
also we saw
All
the
the kids
baby
are
Baby.
grown.
that was born.
The baby was
so,
born,
that's
yeah.
got to be 9 months.
Yeah.
Well, he's looked a little bigger than 9 months, really.
Yeah,
but
he was probably, maybe that was the 5-month thing. But I guess I could be wrong, but I could have sworn Alan and Louise's kids were
We're kids.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so were Betty's and Gus's.
But we have
then
to-
they were out in the yard
Yeah,
tossing
throwing
the pigskin.
Also the whole pig.
I love your country accent. It's great.
Well, yeah, we also have to remember, though, that the space race it eventually ended, so this wasn't, it seemed literally like a 10-year time hop
Yeah.
or something like that, but I guess it wasn't that long.
Kids grow up quick. So I hear.
Right before your eyes.
That is true.
Literally tonight. Right before our eyes.
So lots of things are happening in this time hop, but before we get into the craziest or most intense moment of the episode, a huge chunk of the episode was about the women and their rights as astronaut wives, and exactly what they felt NASA should be doing for them. And the catalyst to this is it's sad what happens, but Marilyns C, who we've seen in quite a few episodes now, Deke calls Marge and tells her that Marilyns' husband, Elliot, it was Marilyns' husband and Jeannie's husband, I think, that they were in a flight and they got caught in bad weather and they got in an accident and died.
Yeah.
And so Deke calls Marge and tells her, I need you to go pick up Marilyns' kids from school. And then someone calls pregnant Marilyn to go over there, and then another
Pregnant Marilyn. I like that.
Gotta keep all the Marilyns separate.
and then another character, I don't think they told us her name, she's told to go over there as well, and
They all need
Play
some coffee.
defense.
right. And they don't want Marilyns C to know just yet.
Right.
And so pregnant Marilyn literally shows up and is like, hey girl, I ran out of coffee, can I have a cup? Sure. And then other Gemini / Apollo wife shows up asking the exact same thing, and Marilyns C just thinks that people literally ran out of coffee.
Yeah.
And then finally someone shows up and tells her about the accident. And so basically the women it's led by Marge, Betty, and Joe, and they gather all the women together, so the current Astronaut Wives, and say, we deserve more than this.
Right. You can't tell all these other wives before you tell the one person that it matters to.
Exactly. And especially in the moment when he finally tells her, and then Marilyn turns around to look at the other two, and they're just both in tears.
She's like, you knew?
I would freak out on somebody.
Yeah, I would be so mad. You were just standing in my kitchen pretending to need coffee when my husband is no longer with us.
That wouldn't comfort me. That wouldn't comfort me in the slightest. It would make me just really, really angry.
Right.
But so they start thinking about this because,
Good to know.
There you go. Because we have to remember, before astronauts, these men were all in the military.
Right.
So every branch of military has a certain protocol of what they do.
And all of these women know that protocol.
Right.
So to be treated so much differently than they were when their husbands were in the military, they can tell the difference,
So the three of them call the meeting with all the wives because they know that if they go to NASA or to Duncan specifically, just them with these demands, it's not going to hold as much clout as all of them going together. So they want a protocol whenever something happens. They want to be able to, communicate with their husband, or at least hear what is happening in the shuttle, in real time, because essentially other times they've just been waiting for someone to call them and give them an update, which has to be obviously insanely frustrating.
Right.
What were their other demands?
That the pregnancy should be celebrated. It is a health thing.
Yeah.
It is a natural
It's a health thing.
Right.
And I feel like there were a few others, but I can't really remember them right now. But
They were all
It was
reasonable.
like the widows should be able to access their
stuff.
office and all of that. Just that whole process should be more efficient.
Yeah.
Moral of the
what you
story,
said,
guys. Women want to know stuff first. All right?
That's right.
If they find out second, they're not happy.
Khalil, you are already light
learning.
years ahead right now.
I'm learning.
So fast.
We're going to start dating a girl. She's like, where'd you learn this? I learned so many things in Astronaut Wives Club.
Yeah, I'm coming up here. Coming up.
There you go. But so in this meeting, all the women, it's kind of like murmurs in the crowd, and they all have their own reasons for saying no, essentially, because they're like, well, Johnny's just about to go up in a few months, and he's been trying really hard, so we can't do that.
Right. Well, they don't want it to affect their husbands.
Right.
So that was a great impression.
AKA what I just said.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But so the women don't want it to affect their husbands. They've been trying really hard. Lots of stuff has gone into this.
But if they get a united front and everyone's in on it, then no one is pinpointed.
They will skirt. Exactly.
They were scared.
But then
Should've just did it.
We see a really sad scene of because Marilyns C at this point, and it's been a while, I think, hasn't been able to access Elliot's stuff at all. So pregnant Marilyn takes Marilyn C to wherever Elliot's office was to get his stuff. And the guard says that she can't go in unless she has a letter from her husband stating that she's allowed to go in.
Yeah, and they're like, that's impossible.
He's not alive. Yeah.
Dead.
So they've called Deke out, and Deke says, like, the stuff and the contents of his office are, an essential part of the next mission because I think they've been having trouble, like, with the design and stuff. And Marilyn says, like, how in the world is her wedding photo a part of this? And so seeing this, Marilyn seeing this happen to the other Marilyn, it kind of motivates her.
She's and her being pregnant.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because we see the scene of her laying in bed with her husband, or she's laying in bed and he walks up.
She kind of slips and tells him.
And says, like, we can't tell people this, or when I'm pregnant. And
I'm pregnant. Oops.
I thought he was gonna, because he's like, how did that happen?
Right.
Yeah, he was like, he said, how did you let this happen?
Khalil's like, I mean, how did you let it happen?
Like he didn't have any part in it.
Lesson number 2.
Don't.
Women don't get pregnant by themselves. That only happened once in the Bible. It hasn't happened since then.
Right.
No.
So
don't say that.
It's good to know.
Don't say, how did you let this happen? Actually,
I would be like, how did you let this happen? People are responsible.
He's like, I thought we were done. Well, we didn't really plan it, did we?
When a woman tells you she's pregnant, what is the proper response?
That's a great question. I don't know.
I'm so happy.
But it depends on where you are. Yeah, because if you're like, I don't want no kids, oh my gosh. Well, actually, you still can never respond with like, it's the worst thing ever. Because it's
you've got to be positive.
So
whatever it is, you got to be positive.
Can we say, is it safe to be like, how do you feel about this?
Well,
Can we do the spin? Can we spin it?
That's a good question. Let me think on that.
Yeah, we'll let you know after the show's over.
I gotta
All right, that one's pending, guys.
I gotta ponder on that
When I find out, I'm gonna tweet you. I'll let you know.
So whole video you doing whatever the response is.
Don, yes. He ends up actually, no, not Don. Marilyn's husband.
Don's the cheating husband.
Yeah. Marilyn's husband ends up, I actually thought it was kind of a bad conversation, but then they end up like smiling and laughing and, oh, baby. So I guess that, went another route. But so they end up, or it's Joe and Marge and Betty. They go to Dunk's office and they have Marilyn with them, pregnant Marilyn. And they tell him all of these demands, and he's basically like, oh, there's more. And they're like, they keep on going. And there's, quite a few things, but it's not anything that's totally unreasonable. It's stuff that really should already be happening for them.
Right.
And he disses them again, and it's like, go home, ladies, go cook for your husband. Mm-hmm. And as they open the door, they're all the astronaut wives there.
Very cool scene.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
And he's like, or whoever says, they're all going to be hungry tonight because we're not leaving until we eat
leftovers.
There you go, leftovers. I really like leftovers though. So.
And then you could always go to McDonald's.
Exactly.
I don't know anybody who doesn't like
McDonald's. Yeah.
Pretty much, I'm pretty sure.
If there's a microwave, there's McDonald's.
Yeah, it gotta be.
For sure. So throughout the episode, we see they are getting their demands whenever Marilyn, I think, whenever her husband is in space, we see like the little microphone box radio type thing that they give her so she can listen in real time. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen another death yet happen, and essentially the ladies all get what they want because they are worth more than NASA has really been giving them.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Credit for.
Gotta fight for your right.
A little side note before we get into the sadness of the episode. Alan and Louise, Alan still kind of seems a little unhappy with the situation, and he's a little testy about everything, and he has to hold on to the side of the car when he gets out. It is. But we see a scene at the end between him and Louise where she says the bank called. I know that Gus and Gordo or someone, I forget, whoever else, their investments, the guys who've been investing their astronaut money, obviously, went south. Are we in financial trouble? And he says, no.
I bought the bank.
My investment paid off. I bought the dang banks. We got all of the money, girl.
We got all the money. That's what you should also say. We got all the money. Number 3.
We got a lot of money.
We got all the money.
But what if we don't?
Well,
You fired all the money.
Say it, and then you figure it out.
So, yay, happiness finally for Alan and Louise.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit of happiness.
You got a bank. Doing good.
Yeah, we can borrow some money. So at the very end of the episode, after, we've seen happy, joy, demands are met, banks are bought, all kind of good stuff is happening. Lots of stuff is happening. We see the spaceships do the rendezvous. We hear Neil Armstrong's name is popped out there for the first time. We still haven't landed on the moon yet, but we've done a lot of stuff. We're trying to have an astronaut be able to work efficiently without flying all around outside of the spaceship. So that's, I guess, what they're going for right now. But we see, I think, Joe's husband calls Joe, and we can, you immediately can tell that something's wrong. And she shows up on Betty's doorstep and says that,
Wally.
Yes, there you go. Joe's husband, Wally, calls her. And so she shows up on Betty's doorstep and says that Gus was testing some kind of, or in a routine test, something went wrong. They don't know exactly what happened. And she reminds her that if it's really bad, then they'll call her immediately because that's what they put in place to happen. Right.
Then they get a knock at the door.
I know. And it's so sad seeing Betty just kind of sit there, just waiting patiently, looking at the phone.
Well, I feel like there was that moment, though, when after Joe told her that she was just sitting there and she like hit that, she like knew. Yeah. She could know when when things have happened. I felt like she had that moment.
Yeah. And
waiting for the call.
So it's like the knock on the door, she opens it, it's like the freaking Grim Reaper.
He does. I was thinking the same thing.
He's so
like the Grim Reaper.
They really need to get a better person to deliver the terrible news.
Because he
looks like he's like more distraught than the wife should be when he's delivering the news. You know what I mean? They need someone more like supportive.
And Betty is, strong woman that she is. It's like, I know we're here, but I just need you to say it. And the guy can't even say it.
Yeah.
But obviously Gus has been in an accident and died. And so
and it was a routine test. It wasn't like a...
It wasn't a mission. It wasn't anything.
Yeah.
So
that sucks even more.
Yeah, and that's another... Oh, that was one of their demands, was that we really want to understand all of the risks that go into everything. And me, in my mind at the time, I'm thinking... I mean, the risk.
Yeah,
they go into space and they can die. Yeah. That's what the risk is.
They can run out of air.
Basically,
I don't know anymore.
Is the risk. Yeah,
right.
But you don't think on like a little routine test that he's done
that something like that could happen.
Times.
Right.
And we see. I forgot. Before that, we see this. At the time, we think the sweetest little scene between Betty and Gus, where this is after the. Time lapse, and then the 5 month later time lapse, and they're sitting out in their backyard. Their sons are throwing the football, and they're still talking about this trip to Paris that they haven't.
He's got French fries.
Gone.
Who doesn't like French fries?
Yeah. Is this Paris enough for you? I'm sorry, but Americans invented French fries. We'll keep that one in our back pocket. So they're still talking about this trip to Paris. Betty still got the travel agent on speed dial. And even while we're watching it, we're like, this trip to Paris is never happening. And then it really doesn't happen. And I'm so sad for them.
I had faith it would happen.
Well, I know, me too.
No, you didn't. You said this trip is never going to happen.
Call me out on that one.
But it didn't happen.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, she's right.
Yeah.
But
he had faith, is what he was saying.
That's what I was saying.
Jinx. So it's really sad because I guess, have been predicting death this whole time.
But we didn't want to be Gus.
I know. And I really didn't think that it was going to happen in this way, just so, nonchalantly. But it kind of brings them down to earth that, okay, there are a million other ways that bad things can happen. Not just, going into space and blowing up or running out of air. And we... Should not be funny. So
you have to downplay my predictions.
I'm not. Those are big things. But, they're all going to be, of course, supportive of them, and many things are still to come for the space race at this time. So,
gotta keep going.
I don't know what they're going to do without Gus, though, because he's the engineer and designer, everything. So,
I don't know what any of us are going to do without Gus.
I know. I'm really sad about it.
So ingenuine. All right.
Really? So ingenuine?
Yeah.
What else? I feel like that was kind of it for this episode.
Yeah.
It was a different.
I miss Reen though, for real.
Yeah.
I know. Let's talk about some predictions so we can talk about our girl, Reen.
Reen is coming back.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about Gus, since that's what we were talking about.
What are you going to predict? That he's going to heaven?
No, that there was like something else behind it. In the preview, it's like something happened with the stuff that they weren't telling Trudy.
Yeah.
And for all of the wives to happen to, Trudy is going to get to the bottom of it. You know what I mean? Betty, that's what I mean. Betty. Yeah, Betty, Trudy. But Betty is going to get to the bottom of it, you know, because she like led the whole rally this episode.
Yeah.
And, you know, if she gets wind of, you know, anything that happened that she doesn't know about, she's going to find out.
Do y'all think it? I wonder, or I guess I should say this. I wonder if it would be if it's like an inside job, if that's what they're referring to, or if it's like, you know, we see in the episode tonight where we do the rendezvous thing, and they said we are the first people to do this. We finally beat the Russians. I wonder if maybe the Russians, maybe they had a spy, and maybe the spy did something.
I honestly don't know.
I don't either, but that's just I'm throwing it out there. No?
Something happened that they obviously don't want the public to know about.
Yeah.
And Gus was involved. So.
But I mean, it happened before with the little phalange thing, right? Wasn't it phalange? No? Okay.
I forgot.
No, but it was one of them's husband, obviously. The thing failed and they said it was his fault and it wasn't his fault.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, they're just trying to cover their tracks.
Yeah. The reason I'm going to go with maybe a Soviet spy is because we haven't really, I mean, this is, when I think about that decade, it's kind of like the decade of some of the biggest cover-ups in United States history. And maybe that could be a thing. He is the head designer. I couldn't think, or as of right now, I can't think of a reason why anyone would just have him killed. But maybe Deke, I think it was, that was hugging her, knows something else. Or obviously he does. So, I don't know, to be continued. But I forgot in the capacity that we saw, what capacity it was that we saw Reen. Was it just a flash of her? Maybe? Oh, I bet she probably comes back to be with Betty.
Funeral.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't, yeah, okay. That's not what I meant, but yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we're getting into some Russian spy stuff. I don't know. I'm just throwing a prediction out there.
Yeah, there you go.
Also, in tonight's episode, I meant to say this earlier, I feel like, I forget how many episodes are in this season, but I feel like they're really trying to like jump,
yeah, and get ahead in time, for sure. At the end, though, it like kind of felt a little rushed to me.
Yeah, me
I was just
too.
like, okay, all this time's happening, and I don't know how much, but it seems like all the kids are grown and, you know, like off and becoming astronauts themselves.
I've been wondering throughout this season, like, when are we going to hear near... Wow.
Get it together.
Neil Armstrong's name.
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be like, oh, we're going to meet his wife and whatever.
Right.
And tonight there's like a Neil Armstrong is out in space. And all right.
Okay, where'd he come from?
Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But I think next week is going to be a really good episode, so I'm excited to see it.
Episode 8.
Cool beans. Well, Stars, will miss you next week. She'll be out of town.
I know.
But
I'll be here for the last 2.
Yeah, we'll have a fabulous time. Where can everybody find y'all?
Oh, you want me to go first? All right. Well, if you don't know, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at Khalil Boo Boo.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sterling Cates.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at April Wissenhant. You can find us all at AfterBuzz TV. Don't forget to download, like, comment, share. And we are excited to hear your comments for next week. And we'll see y'all for episode 8. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.